به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله عليه الصلاة والسلام. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. أما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قال الله في كتابه الكريم ولا تكونوا كالذين نسوا الله فأنساهم أنفسهم. أما بعد, my dear brothers and sisters, apologize for being late. Inshallah we'll still finish on time. In this brief khutbah, I wanted to reflect on some of the stories from the Quran and how they tie back to a lot of the kind of different tests that human beings face, particularly today in this environment where, as we see, one day people around us believe something and the next day it becomes convenient for them to believe something else, so they switch over to that other thing. As we saw, this is not about politics, but just a quick example. You know, people that have said very publicly that there's a certain person that they will never support. A few months later, a few years later, now they're sitting behind him on stage at the inauguration. A lot of times in life, we are tested with difficulty, but sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests us also with barakah. Not with barakah necessarily, but with money, with rizq, with potential. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala oftentimes puts us in situations where there's a lot of good that can come our way if we just do things a little bit differently, a little bit less ethically, a little bit with a little less integrity. And this is one of the great tests that the Prophet ﷺ said, that my ummah will not be tested with a lack, with poverty. They'll be tested actually with abundance. They'll be tested where they have a lot of opportunities in front of them to do things that, you know, maybe it's a little bit unethical, and there's some gray areas there, but if I were to do it, there's so much potential. As we saw this week, Google made an announcement that when first the company was formed, they put in their policies that we will never commit evil. We're no evil company. And this week, they took that out of their policies, which is quite a stark thing to take out of your policies. And many companies like this now, with the potential of AI, particularly where it comes to weapons, and particularly when it comes to working with the Defense Department, with government, etc., to produce a lot of things that may be harmful to human beings. They don't want to take responsibility for it, so they just take it out of their policy altogether that, you know what, whatever people use this technology for, whatever people use these weapons for, it's not on us, we're just the creators of it. And a lot of times for us that might seem like, well, I'm not in those positions of making weapons, like this is not always relevant to me. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually tells us that every human being is morally responsible for the decisions they make in their life. And whether that be we're at the highest levels of government or just a regular person going to day-to-day life, one of the biggest challenges we face in life, brothers and sisters, is doing something that has material benefit for us, but is displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the Quran, in the story of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, as well as Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, as well as Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, there's many examples of this. When Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the Quraysh came to him and they said, you know, just change your message a little bit. You don't have to let go of the whole thing. Just, you know, we'll worship your God for 1 year, then you come and work. Just be good, you know, be reasonable. Worship our God for a year, we'll worship your God for a year. We can all live in peace, we can all live in harmony. What did Prophet ﷺ say? He said, even if you were to put the sun in my hand and the moon in my other hand, the truth is the truth. The haqq is haqq. Rizq at the end of the day, brothers and sisters, is from Allah. Opportunities are from Allah. And if we were to say that we don't take this opportunity that is in front of us, then maybe I'm going to have some harm. Maybe if I, you know, say something to somebody where I should speak up, maybe they're going to look down upon me. Maybe if I were to do something that's going to, you know, rock the boat a little bit. At the end of the day, we have to believe that the opportunities themselves are from Allah. The opportunities themselves are a rizq and a test from Allah. And if we believe in Allah, that Allah guarantees us that our rizq is guaranteed no matter what, that we're going to get what is allotted to us, no matter what. And if we really believe in Allah, then that means that we have to have belief that we're not going to do anything unethical, even if it benefits us. Today in this current climate, one year what's normal and what's acceptable goes this way. A few months later, a few weeks later, what's normal, what's acceptable behavior swings the other way. And it's oftentimes very easy to just follow the crowd, to not stick out. One day it's hard to have a beard. The next day it's easy to have a beard. When I was growing up, my parents used to give me a hard time for having a beard. Some of my extended family members, not necessarily my parents themselves. And then something happened in high school. There's a group called the hipsters that became very famous and became very popular. And having a beard all of a sudden was cool. It was trendy. And even they would wear short pants and they would dress like the sunnah, and they would have very interesting clothes that very much mimic traditional Muslim wear. Even now you see a lot of people, they have these long clothes that almost look like thobes. And it becomes very interesting where things become trendy. And even for the hijab now, there's a lot of fashion lines in Paris and a lot of different places where high fashion now is to wear a scarf over your head. So trends come and go, brothers and sisters. One day it becomes cool, the next day it's not. But at the end of the day, what we learn from the Prophet, the story of the Prophet is ethics doesn't change. Morality and doing things that are right doesn't change today or tomorrow, or a week later or a month later. The test does change. The test sometimes becomes easier and sometimes becomes more difficult. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us, when we يَتَقِ اللَّهِ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبْ وَمَنْ يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us that whoever has that fear, that taqwa, that reminder that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is actually the source of everything. وَمَنْ يَتَقِ اللَّهِ has consciousness of Allah. يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will create for that person an exit and an opening from whatever difficulty they have, from whatever test they have, from whatever trial that they have. يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. And it says in Arabic grammar, the alif, مَخْرَجًا, and it's an extended. It's like unlimited exit, unlimited openings, unlimited blessings. يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبْ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides from means that you never even could have imagined. وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that whoever has that reliance on Allah, that this person, this opportunity, this job, whatever it is in front of me, that's not actually what feeds me. At the end of the day, Allah is the one who gives me rizq. Allah is the one who gives me opportunity. Allah is the one who gives me blessings. فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. The ayah says that Allah is enough for him. And in closing, because I want to stay on time, as we reflect on the sisters, oftentimes it becomes very difficult to stay to the truth. And sometimes the truth becomes so unclear. Like, which company do you support, which company do you not, which company do you buy from, which company do you not? Because everything is a little bit unethical and a little bit ethical. And it's hard to even know, okay, these groceries are made by farmers that are getting paid $3 an hour. It's it's hard to even know. But at the end of the day, what remains important for us as Muslims is that taqwa of Allah. The consciousness that I am going to make decisions in my life in a way that is pleasing to Allah. And that becomes our center of our life and our decision making. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us right ways and wrong ways, and He puts blessing in our life. He puts ni'mah and barakah into our life, that even a few dollars ends up going a long way when it has barakah in it. وَقُولُ قَوْلِي هَذَا وَاسْتَغْفِرُ لَكُمْ وَلِسَائِرِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. In conclusion, there's one story that I came across recently which is very fascinating. In 1983, there was a Soviet officer named Stanislav Petrov. If you've never heard of him, he's one of the most consequential figures in American and Russian history. Stanislav Petrov was an officer that was responsible for sending out the nuclear warheads on behalf of the USSR, the Soviet Union. So in 1983, their systems, the USSR's military systems, detected that the Americans had sent missiles over to them. And in their protocol, the USSR, if you see a detection on your systems that they send missiles over, in their protocol you have to now release the nuclear arcade back to the Americans. This is a real story. So Stanislav Petrov is standing there now, and according to his protocol and according to his superiors and everyone around him, he is now supposed to press the button to release the entire nuclear arsenal into America. And once the Americans sees that, they're going to release their nuclear arsenal back. Tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of people would have died. This one man standing in the moment, about to press the button, and he says, you know what? Let me just wait. Let me just wait a little bit just to confirm 100% without any degree of uncertainty that I'm going to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. He waited and he waited and he waited, and even though his people around him were pressuring him, you have to fire back, you have to fire back. He waited, and eventually he found out that the signals that were coming were false, that the Americans never sent any missiles towards Russia. Had he pushed that button, everyone's life today would be very different. The entire trajectory of the West would have been different if America had been bombed by nuclear weapons. Tens of millions, possibly hundreds of millions of people would have died. And the effects of that are catastrophic. The difference is one man deciding that I'm going to make sure that I'm going to do the right thing in this scenario. Oftentimes, our lives are not at that level of stakes, right? Where the decisions that we make end up being the right decisions or wrong decisions that end up changing life or death outcomes. We, most of the time, are not in that scenario. But our ability to make that decision does matter. We will oftentimes find ourselves in that situation in life where we do have to make those decisions that are critical, that are consequential. And unless somebody is already used to making decisions in a way that's ethical, when we're put to the test, it becomes very hard to do the right thing. It's about the consistency. It's about the perspective that I am always going to do things in a way that is ethical, and I'm always going to do things in a way that is pleasing to Allah, and I'm always going to do things in a way that doesn't harm people. Because when the test comes, and the moment comes, there's been studies done on this, that why do people, for example, like when there's a train coming to, and there's someone in front of the train, there's a group of people that just go and rescue somebody and get them out of harm's way. The studies have tried to understand why do some people act this way and some people don't, and they found that the people who act out of goodness, they do it as a habit. They don't think. When the opportunity is presented in front of them, people who habitually do and act in a way that is morally conscious, when the dire circumstances presented of you, you will act in a way that you habitually act. You don't have time to think in that time. And so this becomes more and more important to us, especially as Ramadan comes closer with the sisters, that we start to think about, how do I habitually act? What is my normal state of being? Is my normal state of being out of selfishness and ego and out of only taking care of myself? Or is my normal state of being that I constantly am thinking about, how does Allah want me to act in this scenario? What is going to be pleasing to Allah? It's because when we come to the test, we're going to act the same way we've always acted. So it becomes incumbent on us to remember that everything, brothers and sisters, is from Allah, and that when Allah becomes the center of our life, everything also tends to fall. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات ربنا إنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين ربنا اهدنا إلى صراط مستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين وأقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله